everyone. Welcome to today's event, the Filecoin Virtual Machine launch celebration. My name is HQ Han. I'm one of the ecosystem growth leads at Protocol Labs, and I'll be your host today for the Filecoin launch livestream. So many of you are familiar by now, but for those of you who are new, the Filecoin Virtual Machine, also called FVM, brings programmability to Filecoin. We actually started designing the beginnings of the FVM in late 2021. So the team and the community at large has been hard at work for close to 2 years now. Today is a major innovation for Filecoin, and we are so excited to celebrate and connect with all of you. I'll first run through the agenda for the next hour and a half on this live stream. Okay. So I'll start off with a couple of minutes around introducing what is FVM. I'll then pass over to Colin who will share about the FVM in the context of Filecoin's larger vision. Next, we have the first panel for today, which will be covering long-term opportunities with the FVM with Jonathan Victor and a couple of guests. Next, we'll move on to Molly, who will really give us a lot of color around the use cases and the builders that are enabled by the FVM. And next will be panel 2, which will cover how the FVM upgrades capabilities of Web3 and beyond. And then we'll close off with a very strong note with Juan Benet, our CEO and founder, as he looks forward with the FVM. All right. So let me just share my screen. Give me a second. All right. I'm going to take about 3 minutes to cover what is the FVM in a very short and sweet introduction for all of us here today. So there are actually 3 main points that I wanted to cover today. First off, the FVM delivers on-chain programmability to the Filecoin network. This really is, delivering smart contract capabilities. Second point, the FVM was designed to have multi-chain support, so it's possible to launch multiple runtimes and so forth. But today we launched the FEVM, which makes the FVM EVM compatible. What this really means is that developers at large will be able to port over, write and deploy Ethereum contracts that they're really familiar with and enjoy the full support of the tools that they are also very familiar with. The third thing is the FVM will allow computation over Filecoin State. So what this really means is that anyone will be able to deploy smart contracts to program the what, when, and how of data, transactions, or proofs on the Filecoin network. So we believe that the expressiveness that this brings and the openness to the Filecoin economy will allow very sophisticated offerings to be built on top of our primitives and really pave the way for broader adoption. I'm now going to pass over to our first speaker, Colin, who will share more about how the FVM fits into the broader Filecoin vision. Colin.
Thank you, HQ. All right. Can everyone see my screen here? Okay, perfect. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Colin, but my friends call me Protocolin, and I am just absolutely delighted at the launch of the FVM today. We just owe the community that's been working on this for about 2 years a huge debt of gratitude as this really escalates Filecoin into its next chapter of adoption. Today, I'm going to share a little bit about how the FVM really falls into the context of the overall Filecoin master plan. So I'll get started here. As we all know, Filecoin is a crypto-powered storage network whose mission is to create a decentralized, efficient, and robust foundation for humanity's information. Over the last 2 years, Filecoin has really become the scalable data storage layer of Web3. Filecoin is now 99% of Web3 storage capacity, 96% of data storage utilization within Web3, and it's become the developer platform of choice for folks all over the Web3 space. But that still falls well short of our ambitions for the project. For really most of us watching here today are here to kind of help Web 2 and Web 3 cross the chasm and really bring verifiability to all of our internet transactions, whether it's a Web 3 app or kind of a Web 2 app. And in order to do that, Web 3 storage and compute must become web scale in order to host applications of the order of magnitude of Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and many, many others. We're not there yet today, but with the launch of FVM, we start to move into that direction where Filecoin can help Web 2 cross the chasm and have billions of people get access to verifiable infrastructure. Now, there was a three-step master plan for Filecoin to execute on that overall objective. And that was around step 1, building the world's largest decentralized storage network. Step 2, onboarding and safeguarding humanity's data. And step 3, bringing compute to that data to enable web scale applications. The launch of FVM today really initiates step 3 of the Filecoin master plan, bringing smart contracts and user programmability to Filecoin and unleashing the enormous potential of an open data economy. It helps me kind of think about it in this diagram. Up top, you have storage markets, retrieval markets, and compute over data, which are the off-chain building blocks of the Filecoin network. Now, the FVM really becomes the underlying programmable layer, almost like the operating system that orchestrates where and how data gets placed, incentivized, and governed, giving rise to the concepts of data Dows and programmable storage, concepts that we've never seen before. Any developer can deploy smart contracts to Filecoin, allowing more people to participate in the creation and capture around data. And that all of this really means that FVM solidifies Filecoin as the L1 that is uniquely powers the open data economy. Now, you might ask yourself, hey, FVM, this is old news. It was launched in 2016 for the first time. So why is this such a big deal? Well, it's a big deal in the context of steps 1 and 2 of the Filecoin master plan, which are extraordinarily unique to Filecoin. So I'm going to spend a few minutes recapping the progress we've made along those lines. All right, so Filecoin is the largest decentralized storage network in the world. We have over 38 storage provider systems across 44 countries with 13 exabytes of storage capacity, enough to power 4 billion HD movies across the network. This is huge, right? This is an incredibly hard thing to replicate, and the amount of hardware that's been amassed at the Filecoin network makes it incredibly unique within the Web3 space. Now, over the last year, we've also seen storage provider systems become much more active participants in the Filecoin ecosystem. The percent of SPs taking verified deals has grown over 6.5x in the last year, from about 3% of them taking deals at the beginning of last year to about 20% today. And so SPs are really finding new ways to differentiate themselves in the network, and there's a huge opportunity to accelerate momentum in 2023. We see top-tier hardware vendors leaning in with reference architectures and leasing programs, including Seagate, AMD, Supermicro, and many, many others. And we see accelerator programs that are helping more SPs get started around the world. ESPA is one that's been extremely successful with 5 or 6 cohorts launching in Vegas to date. And finally, we're working to make sure that Filecoin is the greenest storage network on the planet, and doing so verifiably using the initiative of Filecoin Green. Great, so that's step 1. We have successfully built the world's largest decentralized storage network. So let's check in on step 2, onboarding and safeguarding humanity's data. If I could rewind for a minute back to the beginning of 2022, there was about 24 petabytes of data stored on Filecoin that were verified. In the last 14 months, if you fast forward today, that data is up 27x to 655 petabytes of verified data on Filecoin, which is absolutely enormous, especially during a bear market in crypto. Total client data has 25x since January 2022. This makes this the fastest growing storage network amongst the world. 3 to 4 petabytes are onboarded per day, and it actually makes Filecoin larger than many centralized players that are even public companies in the Web 2 world. Much more importantly, there's 13 exabytes of capacity still to fill with user data, and so we have a lot of work to do in the coming years. To support this, we've seen over 1,400 unique clients upload data across the Filecoin network. This could be, a university with a really large data set, or it could be an onboarding platform like NFT.storage, which in turn serves hundreds of thousands of users. And 23% of those have onboarded large data sets as defined by 100 terabytes or more. We've seen this number of clients increase about 2.7x since the beginning of last year, which is incredible. And so this has been done through both the Filecoin Plus program, as well as many different on-ramps that make it easier for folks to use Filecoin as an entry point. And so using those on-ramps, we've seen many, many different types of applications launch on Filecoin. Hundreds, in fact, from metaverse and gaming to personalized storage and communication apps, video and audio, and decentralized identity and credentialing. We've also seen major Web 2 initiatives start to take note of Filecoin and incorporate it, including the Decentralized Storage Alliance and IDC, which is a major publication in the Web 2 cloud storage space. We've seen hundreds of large data sets be stored onto Filecoin, including massive scale data science and public government data sets, things like UC Berkeley's Neutrino data research and NYC's open data on Filecoin as well. And we've seen Retrieval Markets launch CDNs on top of Filecoin, including Saturn, which is really inching towards the goal of sub-second retrieval on the network. Finally, the network of startups on Filecoin is flourishing. There are over 500 total funded teams building in the Filecoin IPFS and PLN ecosystems, all at different various stages. Some have grant funding, some are Series A or Series B or Series C funded. So huge congratulations to the Filecoin community in really accelerating and turbocharging step 2. There's a lot of work to be done, but we made a tremendous amount of progress in the last 14 months. Now that brings us to step 3. And FVM really kicks off step 3 by bringing on-chain programmability to the Filecoin network. I'll review a slide that we covered earlier where you have like the fundamental building blocks that are super unique to Filecoin up top. Storage markets, retrieval markets, and compute over data, all of which is on-chain. Now, FVM is this underlying operating system on-chain that orchestrates how data gets placed, incentivized, and governed within the ecosystem. That gives rise to the concepts like data Dows and programmable storage, and most importantly, any developer can deploy smart contracts to Filecoin, allowing more people to participate in the creation and capture of value around data. FVM also expands the potential market size that developers on the Filecoin economy can address, from storage and retrieval, which were in kind of the tens of billions, to compute, which is in the 300 billion plus range, which is absolutely incredible. We've seen tons of different use cases that Molly will touch on in a minute, from perpetual storage of NFTs to data Dows to Filecoin staking, and we'll see many, many more that we have yet to anticipate on the Filecoin network. And there's tremendous community excitement around FVM. Over 1,000 hackers participated in the Space Force hackathon. Hundreds of projects are building on it, and we're seeing all sorts of tools for builders to accelerate that over the coming months. Now, what FVM also enables is kind of working on a number of bridges to other blockchain networks. We really want to build connectivity to other blockchains where smart contracts across the Web3 space can store, retrieve, and cause computation to happen over data using the Filecoin network. And so any of these really other smart contract systems can use Filecoin using FVM to store, retrieve, or cause computation to happen on their data. Another thing FVM really enables is compute over data, which enables massive Web 2 applications to finally make the transition to Web 3. Think of the order of magnitude of Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and many others. And the way this will happen on Filecoin is that Filecoin will be an L1 where many different L2 compute networks can live. And those L2 networks can optimize around different properties, privacy, verifiability, or performance. And so there are many of these that will exist. There's a working group around compute over data that has many, many different teams chasing these kind of underlying objectives, and we think there'll be many, many winners. Finally, FVM also enables consensus breakthroughs that can allow Filecoin to move from a couple hundred transactions per second, which is kind of the max that we've seen in the Web3 space as a whole, to billions of transactions per second, or hopefully in the future, trillions. One of the consensus mechanisms is called interplanetary consensus, and it's looking to launch its beta later this year. So all of this combined really onboards a ton of data to Filecoin, but it enables massive scale data science and finally web scale Web3 applications to exist on Filecoin using compute over data. And so that's the Filecoin master plan. Step one is to build the world's largest decentralized storage network. Step two is to onboard and safeguard humanity's data. And step three is to bring compute to that data to enable web scale applications. And the launch of FVM today really solidifies Filecoin's position as the L1 uniquely poised to power the open data economy. It initiates step three of the master plan, which will enable, in turn, web scale applications to run on Web3 tech. Finally, before I pass it back to HQ, I just want to mention that for Filecoin builders, there's no better time to join the Filecoin ecosystem. On the Tales of Space Warp, which was the hackathon that we ran last month, there'll be about a hackathon a month for builders to get educated with Filecoin and familiar and start to hack on early projects. There are 2 or 3 accelerators dedicated to FVM builders in the coming months, including Long Cash and Graph Paper Capital. And there's tons of capital and funding coming into the space looking to fund applications building on FVM. There's actually a demo day called Phil.bc on March 21st that will have hundreds of investors and 25 startups pitching to those investors to get venture capital funding. And so look out for that as well. All in all, super exciting times for the Filecoin network. And with that, I will pass it back to HQ to introduce the panel. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much, Colin. That is a superb overview of Filecoin's vision, master plan, and how the FVM fits into our roadmap. And next up, I'd like to invite Vinny, Gabriel, and Mihai to join Jonathan Victor for a discussion on the long-term opportunities on the FVM. So all of the people on our panel today have spent significant time in our ecosystem. For Mihai, analyzing Filecoin's progress. For Vinny and Gabriel, investing and supporting our startups over the years. So over the next 20 minutes, we'll hear from their perspectives on what the huge unlocks of the FVM enables. JV, over to you.
Thanks, HQ. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm super excited to be chatting today. I don't know if everyone knows Mihai, Vinny, and Gabriel, but maybe we can do a quick round if y'all want to do a quick intro. Maybe Mihai, if you want to give it a start.
For sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Mihai Grigore of Messari. I lead the Web3 protocol research team, and I cover Filecoin on a quarterly basis.
Vinny, you want to go next?
Hey, John. Hi, I'm Vinny. I think I'm the first investor in Protocol Labs, actually, since 2014. Yeah, I'm just a huge fan and supporter of Filecoin, known Juan for years, and building a company called Waitroom, which is a video conferencing platform, and we're actually using Filecoin because we record and store all the videos from all the chats, and we're using AI on top of that. So it's exciting.
It's amazing. And Gabriel?
GM. Hi, everybody. Gabriel here, founder and managing partner of Graph Paper Capital, previous 2-time founder, 2-time EIR, been long-time partners with Protocol Labs, previously the MD of Tachyon, where we invested in and backed over 90 founders. Today, founder and managing partner of Graph Paper Capital, which is an early stage Web3 accelerator and network ecosystem. So we seek to back the most ambitious founders that are helping to define the future of Web3. Extremely bullish on Filecoin and FVM. We back founders, helping them accelerate them through capital, access, and insights. So excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us. This is amazing. I mean, today we're going to be talking about opportunities unlocked by the FVM. I know individually I've talked with each of you about different components of that. And Colin just gave all of us in the audience as well sort of an overview of where Filecoin's going, how all of these things sort of fit together. I think like one conception I've had for this is thinking of Filecoin as sort of having like all of these data services, things that power the data economy. But now that we have the FVM, we can sort of trigger these services. We can trigger the automation of the value for these services as well. And we're really being able to marry these two sides of the coin together. I think this is exciting for a number of reasons. One, in terms of just adding net new more into the Web3 economy. We now have the ability to contract for these services directly from blockchains. So this is just purely additive in that sense. But equally, it now means that other L1s also have a superpower. As soon as we have some of these bridges coming online, some of the partners like Axlar or Seller who are adding more capabilities, this will mean that people can actually now trigger from other ecosystems, sort of like some of the superpowers of the Filecoin economy. And so maybe just to kickstart this discussion, maybe Gabriel, I'll kick it to you to start. I'd be curious, like from your perspective, what are the most interesting areas that you're focused on today? When you think about founders and some of the things that they're looking at, what are the earliest opportunities that are sort of spiking for you?
Yeah, so the thing that I think is really exciting about FVM is the unlocking of like new and novel business models and use cases. I think the FVM team actually did a really fantastic job writing up a request for startups for developers or builders that are out there. I'm particularly excited about what we're going to see around data DAOs and programmable storage markets, right? So I actually wrote a piece back in 2021. I was having conversations with Juan back in the days, wrote a piece around the possibilities around data DAOs. And back then, I think a lot of the things that we were writing or thinking about were very hypothetical. But the vision was always wanting to see like the emergence of these community-owned crypto networks that are able to build these shared ownership marketplaces for civilization's most important data. And I think some of that starts to become unlocked now through the application of FVM. And I think through some of these crypto-powered, coordinated communities, we're going to see some really interesting use cases and some really interesting and cool business models. So I'm really excited about some of the applications around data DAOs. I hope we see things like whether they be like gaming data DAOs, for example. I think is something that I wrote about back then, and I've seen Juan continue to talk about where these incentives between whether it be like game publishers and players are starting to get coordinated, where we see these really high quality games start to emerge in Web3 that are composable and more democratic. You can start to imagine how these communities can decide how virtual worlds get built. We backed a company together back in the days, Mona, which is a 3D metaverse company that's building some really cool applications. And so I think we're going to see some really cool stuff that starts to get emerged. But the coordination through things like data DAOs and gaming data DAOs, I think could be really exciting. I think my third startup was in the digital media space in Web 2. I think data DAOs being applied to things like decentralized social platforms could be really fascinating, interesting. Where again, like community governance can really dictate, platform direction, and coordination and decision-making applications. So I think that's really exciting. And then I think the other thing that's really becomes possible with FVM, is starting to see like what startups and builders are going to build around programmable storage markets, right? So with FVM, devs can start to build and create these, data center type logic applications that orchestrate and aggregate this brokerage and storage capacity in all new and novel ways, creating all new business models. So I think I'm really excited about things like storage bounties, where storage providers can compete to win deals, helping to bring down the price for clients. I think we're going to start to see some really cool stuff like auction marketplaces or full sector marketplaces, passing on volume discounts, all kinds of, cool programmable marketplace type applications, all composable, which I think, gets really exciting when you start to think about, the new business models that get unlocked.
On data DAOs, I would add the potential of data and analytics services to be offered in open marketplaces. So think, for instance, of being able to curate a data set or potentially link it with other data sets and potentially augment it to more complex data sets that can be used for machine learning purposes. So think there of being able to have training models for machine learning models and being able to run those with the new compute capabilities offered by FVM.
Yeah, I don't know if any, you'd mentioned on the weight room side, you guys have been looking at decentralized storage along with AI. I mean, it's also maybe a coincidence that GPT-4, I think, released today as well. So maybe this is all in the cards. But yeah, I'm curious if you have any thoughts as well on sort of like the intersection of when we have this decentralized infrastructure and some of these other sort of like broader macro trends inside of tech, how you see those sort of connecting.
I mean, look, I think the advent of GPT-4 and machine learning, AI, large language models, this is all like, it's all playing into where we're going with, I think, large data sets. I mean, one of the interesting things is if you can have AI generating things, the amount of data required that we need in the world, data storage is like exponentially more than we've seen in the past 10 years with just humans doing it, right? So when machines start generating useful data, I think that the storage requirements go up significantly. And just as an example, like you could run a script to have machines generate, millions of images in the hopes of them, coming across something that you need, and then you have to store that, then you have to analyze it, right? And like things like spatial data, right? Like geospatial data, James Webb Telescope data, all that stuff. Like there's a lot of data we're getting from, the parts of the world and galaxies that we, previously like to store that data would be impossible. Now it is possible, and it is economically possible.
Also, I mean, like one of the things that I think is fascinating for me is like, as we've seen more and more conversations about sort of like AI and where does the value capture actually happen, people talking about, well, if OpenAI is able to trade on this large corpus of data, like where's the value flow back towards the people who created those original data sets, the people who curated? I think like crypto actually has the best answer in like, not just like inside of Web3, but like generally speaking, like has the best answer for how do you do value attribution back? Although maybe like this is a harder question to answer, I think like once we have some of these primitives in place, we've seen it in the form of like NFT royalties. But I think we have the most close coupled way of saying like, when you have these downstream distributed things, you have a mechanism to actually say like the final place where value is actually distributed can still now trickle back to the original sort of sources as well. This also, I think, leads to another interesting point, which is when we think about, I think Colin had a slide about like storage, compute, retrieval as 3 different bubbles in the way that we think of value in Web 2, but those are purely at the services layer. What's interesting is once we're tying together both like the payment for these services as well as like the actual services themselves, you can have full applications where it's like if you have a game economy sitting on top of these rails, it's not just like what was the compute bill that is like the value of that economy, it's also what is the value of that game company or that game platform itself. And so I'm curious, Vinny, maybe if you have some thoughts here from your side on what is like the FEVM really unlock in terms of like growing the Filecoin economy and new use cases. Yeah,
I might go a little bit low level for a second, low level, but not like application level. I think right now the thing I'm most excited about is the ability to use the FEVM and the FEM for allowing storage providers to just borrow coins in a secure way. I mean, for me, that's just like very basic need we have right now. Like I've got Filecoin. I want to lend it out. I don't want to have counterparty risk. I don't want to have risk of things, and if you can spread it across multiple pools, then you can reduce your risk. That I want to be able to manage my own risk and not just, send the Filecoin to some address that some storage provider gives me and hope that they give me the coins back. And, and the reason that's important, by the way, is like the way to get around that right now is you use intermediaries. And they kind of manage the risk and they have the multiple key thing like anchorage, etc. But they take a cut, right? So there's you get rid of the middleman and it's just peer-to-peer. Like if you have Filecoin, you can effectively stake it and provide it to pools and to storage providers and have minimal risk. And I think this is for me, this is the most valuable thing that we've seen, that is basically enabled for the network, because it turns Phil into like a real form of collateral that you can use, and it makes it, it just unlocks so much value in Filecoin. And there's so many more things we can do on top of that. That's why I want to just be like, let's start with the basics, There's a lot more we can do on top of that.
100%. Well, I think like one of the other things that's kind of fascinating is when we think about like data DAOs in general, like being able to, when we think about who is the person who's providing that collateral, it doesn't have to just be like a person who's a token holder. Like that could be a protocol itself. That could be a data set that wants to fund itself and make sure that it's in existence. And so I think there's like use cases and models that we haven't really envisioned. Mihai, it looked like you maybe had a thought there too.
Yeah, I'd add on top of that creating value-added services will essentially enable more demand for block space for Filecoin, and I think this is something to stress when it comes to the implications for the Filecoin economy. Essentially, this is what will enable the next wave of adoption for Filecoin services and will essentially grow the Filecoin economy.
Amazing. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I'd be curious, Mihai, from your side, just looking at like other trends in crypto overall. I know DePIN has been a thing that has floated in and out in terms of sort of like popularity, gaming, social. I'm curious, sort of seeing like some of these new primitives that are coming up in Filecoin land, some of the intersections in the broader themes that you see elsewhere in crypto. Are there any interesting connections that are sort of sparking in your brain?
For sure. I'm thinking about this in terms of interoperability, and I think this is currently underserved in crypto, and I think Filecoin currently takes the right approach to being able to integrate the Filecoin economy with other layer ones economies, and essentially being able to have or like generate value-added services. This will definitely lead into getting more demand and potentially accruing more fees from users. And I think what will be cornerstone for Filecoin is going to be being able to sustainably operate its network with storage and service providers. So essentially accruing more value out of transactions and out of fees will essentially drive the long-term sustainability of the network. And I'm bringing this up because most of the protocols are actually lacking product market fit, and adoption is not there. So if there is like one big trend that I will be thinking of, or one big topic, is how interoperability will lead into more or bigger Filecoin economy, and essentially, more adoption and more fees accrued.
I guess, Gabriel, from your side, when you see and talk to entrepreneurs who are thinking of new opportunities, how do you sort of see them sort of like piecing together sort of like new opportunities on the horizon here and matching that against some of the things that both Mihai was saying, as well as just sort of like the things that people are sort of thinking about in crypto broadly?
Yeah, I think for builders that are building in the space, I think one of the really smart things that the FVM team did was the introduction of FEVM, right? And so being able to bring over your smart contracts, if you're already building in Solidity, being able to port that over and be able to jump right into the ecosystem is a huge value add to founders and developers. So I think immediately, I think some of the things that we'll start to see is whether it's this interoperability or cross-chain functionality, building basic things like over collateralized type lending solutions for storage providers. I think there's some I think Vinny was saying this earlier. I think there's some of the initial use cases are going to be some of the things that the Ethereum ecosystem or EVM ecosystem has had for a while, where we'll start to see this extremely fast pace of innovation and adoption from builders in the space that can build some of the functionality that EVM has provided or had for builders in the space. But then the stuff that starts to get built on top of that, whether we start talking about, liquid staking solutions or, additional storage on-ramps, things like that. I think, JB, I think you've written before about like perpetual storage type of solutions and the functionality that comes along. I think those are some of the things that the initial use cases that we're going to start to see. And the thing that I've been telling founders and builders is, you've got this, Filecoin is anchored to this large, real functional use case. And so with the emergence of this open data economy, you've got this massive TAM, but the stickiness of that TAM is really solid because there's a real functional use case. It's not like we're speculating on JPEGs or something. The stickiness of that TAM is really solid. And so, as a founder, as a startup builder, you're building on top of a new frontier or a new market. I think we're going to see a lot of first mover advantages, I guess is what I'm trying to say in terms of like founders and builders. And that's the thing that I've been really trying to push founders to think about as they're building inside of this ecosystem. So yeah, I think it's going to be really cool and a lot of fun and a lot of excitement working with builders that are building in the space.
100%. And maybe to sort of like bridge across all three of your comments, I think one of the things that's maybe underappreciated about Filecoins Economy is we have thousands of businesses that are anchored into like the crypto economic rails that is the Filecoin network. Every storage provider is a business that's committing like millions of dollars of capital into this network. And so when you think about like, what does DeFi look like for Filecoin? It looks like financial services for a bunch of small businesses. Like when we're talking about, well, if you're taking storage deals, there's actually an incentive to even take payment on chain if it means that someone can write a smart contract that would allow someone else to then be able to like basically like resell that cash flow to someone else and do all the other normal financing things. So I think there's like a lot of opportunity. I think one of the things that's different about Filecoins Economy is just the fact that it's focused on a very specific use case. It's also got all of these native businesses that are tied to it. Personally, I think that for me is the area where there's maybe the most excitement. I guess we're getting close to the end of our time here. Maybe one last question to go around the horn. Colin briefly touched on some of the other things that come after the FEVM, but the FEVM really is this enabler to start triggering more and more of these services. We have retrieval markets on the horizon. So how do we get to super low latency distribution of content? We have compute over data, different frameworks for being able to transform the data that's sitting on the Filecoin network. We have interplanetary consensus for being able to actually get down to those like super low latency sort of like operations. And so I'm curious, as you guys are sort of like thinking about Filecoin, obviously we have so much to do in the next few months with the FEVM launching and building up some of those fundamental use cases. But as you look out over the horizon, what are the areas that are maybe the most interesting to you? Maybe I'll start with Mihai.
Yeah, definitely compute over data, I think, is the most fascinating and exciting one. I think essentially being able to run large machine learning models and running large complex simulations is going to be changing the paradigm. So I'll be very excited to see that in action.
Vinny?
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about like I think I guess I'm a little bit more patient because I think that there's a lot more ecosystem development that needs to happen first. So if you ask me the next 6 months, I'd be like, look, we just got to keep building out the the basic infrastructure that we need. And I mean, compute over data is exciting. I think it's going to happen, but I don't think we're going to see the full benefits of it for another year probably. I could be wrong, but getting to the point where Filecoin is basically seen as one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 layer ones is probably my goal. Because that's a very competitive space right now. There's a ton of when developers are looking to build on a platform, how do we get to the point where they want to build on Filecoin? And so maybe targeting the use cases and needs for developers building large scale products that require large scale storage and making Filecoin the default for them would be a good start. But yeah, I'm having been in the space for a long time, I'm just a lot more patient than other people because the impatience was worn out of me a long time ago.
Fair enough. So I will let Wes, when he comes up, contradict you on the timeline for compute. Gabriel, you want to close this out?
I love the rational optimism from Vinny there. Strong +1 there. You learn to become very patient in the crypto space, that's for sure. Humility is a superpower, I think. I don't know. I like, if I were to look across the horizon, I think decentralized compute is probably like something that's really exciting and something that I think we all want to see happen in the near term and near future. Really starting to push compute jobs to the edges and coordinating its execution where some of the actors are, where the storage is, I think is going to be really cool. Both from a practical cost efficiency standpoint, but also from like a speed standpoint, as we start to see things like advanced AI, ML, models coming online, or 5G coming online, and the interoperability between convergence of a lot of these technology stacks. I think something like decentralized compute becomes really exciting.
100%. Well, Mihai, Vinny, Gabriel, thank you all for joining us. This was amazing. Really appreciate you both joining for today, but also just being supporters of the ecosystem overall. HQ, I will pass it back to you.
Sure. James, let's play the video. Okay, Well, now that we've covered not only how the FVM fits into the overall Filecoin vision, but also talked about how it ties in relevantly to broader macro trends like AI or even broader crypto Web3 themes, I'm going to turn the mic to Molly, Head of Engineering, Product and Research, to share with us about the use cases and builders that are currently building on the FVM. Molly.
Awesome. Thanks so much, HQ. I am going to give you a lightning tour of some of the key use cases enabled by FVM. I'm going to try and get through these in just 5 minutes and just give you an overview of some of the amazing things that are already getting built today with FVM. And really all of this is thanks so much to the early builders who have been building on FVM for over the past year, building tooling, building applications, and building smart contracts that are now already deployed. We now already have hundreds of smart contracts deployed on FVM. Hundreds of thousands of fill have already been loaded into the FVM. And so this is super exciting to see this ecosystem and these use cases come to life. So first, an amazing example that we'll hear more about in a second is how NFT.storage is utilizing FVM to automate the long-term persistence of their data stored in Filecoin. So they now have a little storage bot that lives on FVM, which is helping look out for the data that they have stored in Filecoin and repair it long into the future. So we can have these auto-renewing programmable storage contracts, which can enable long-term, maybe permanent, TBD, persistence of this data, and really takes the next step for NFT.storage in terms of becoming kind of an on-chain actor, helping preserve this data over time. Another example that's leaning into all of the new programmability in FVM is Lighthouse, which has been doing perpetual storage on Filecoin for a while now, and they are now bringing all of those capabilities and smart contracts to FVM, and this enables anyone, any application can work with Lighthouse to do long-term storage. Lighthouse manages things like having a long-term endowment for that data storage and helping do things like aggregation, which is really useful as well to make sure that many small storage deals get aggregated into long-term persisted data deals. We also have a ton of folks working in kind of the DeFi space. Glyph is working on a staking marketplace, which allows token holders to put their resources to work to actually help grow and extend the Filecoin network and help storage providers really meet the collateral demands that they have in the Filecoin network so that as they onboard new useful data to the network, that they are securing that over time and making sure that it stays accessible to the clients that care about it. We see a ton of other DeFi staking and loan products, folks from Filet, from Collective, and a number of other groups are bringing new swapping tools and other DeFi niceties to the Filecoin ecosystem. We also see some groups going a step further and using FVM to create things like rewards contracts. Saturn is the Web3 CDN that is helping power fast access to data stored in IPFS and Filecoin around the world. And they have a smart contract built on FVM, which enables rewarding all of their over 1,000 global points of presence nodes for the retrieval work they're doing on behalf of the Saturn network, which is pretty cool. We also see a ton of folks leaning into data Dows, which I know the last panel talked about a lot, leaning into this around computing, around communities that care about long-term preservation and curation of data sets they care about, and also thinking about how those data sets that they govern and improve over the long term can actually recur value back to that data DAO through things like off-chain compute, or making it private data sets that you want to make accessible for a fee to different parties. And so a number of groups like Lagrange and SpinDAO have come online. And last but not least, check out in just a couple of days an awesome update on what the Bacalhau team has been putting together around stable diffusion compute, where they have collected a kind of training data set based on specific artists that want to have their data sets have training stable diffusion algorithms run over them. Those artists are compensated for the compute that is run over the data that they contribute. And then from that, we can generate new beautiful images, mint those as NFTs on top of FVM, and really just see the whole life cycle of compute, on-chain programmability, and being able to mint NFTs in a life cycle that really rewards the original creators of data while helping create new exciting data that the ecosystem can benefit from. So those are just a few examples of the amazing things that have already been built and launched on FVM already. But as folks mentioned, there's a ton of open requests for startups, a ton of things that probably haven't even been thought of yet. So very excited to see what you will build. And there's a ton of ideas. Please check out the link or message me on Twitter, and I'm happy to give you 10,000 ideas as well.
All right. Okay. There's some really cool use cases tying in the capabilities of Web3 to real world services. And I'm really loving the energy from all of you. So building on that momentum, let's hear from the perspectives of some of our Web3 launch partners who are out there making this a reality. I'd love to invite Michelle Lee from Protocol Labs to lead the discussion with Anna from Galaxy, Christian from Ocean, Elizabeth from NFT.storage, Eric from LivePeer, and last but not least, Wes from WaterLily. Let's go right in.
Thank you, HQ. Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Lee, also known as Mosh. We have a fantastic lineup for this segment, not just as panelists for today, but every one of these fantastic panelists represents longtime collaborators and builders that we've admired, supported, collaborated over many years. You know, someone asked me yesterday if I was excited for this launch, and I said, yeah, sure, but I'm even more excited for what's to come when the possibilities for FVM get turned into real world solutions. And everyone on this panel has been doing exactly that. So let's jump right in. First, for our panelists, why don't you tell us your name and a 30-second intro into your company or project? We'll start with Anne and then go to Eric, Elizabeth, Christian, and Wes.
Hi, thanks for having me. Everyone can hear me. I'm Anne, I'm CMO at Galaxy. Galaxy, your Web3 community is waiting. Basically, we are the leading community platform. So basically, we've helped people ranging from, Optimism to Polygon, Arbitrum, do quest-based campaigns and to better reward and incentivize their users. And basically, all of this beautiful quest-based and campaigns is built on a data infrastructure. So that's why we're here today to talk about that.
Thanks, and over to you, Eric.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Tang. I'm co-founder and CTO at LivePeer. LivePeer is a decentralized video infrastructure built for any application developer, but specifically for the Web3 ecosystem. So there are applications like LensTube or Orb that are kind of the leading Web3 social apps, or Huddle01, who we're familiar in this crowd. They're kind of the Zoom for Web3. Beam and Bonfire leading Web3 video creator applications, or Picardo or Blatt Radio. Those are kind of non-Web3 video streaming applications. They all use LivePeer for video live streaming and video on demand solutions. And we're really excited to be here.
Thanks for being here, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, hit unmute.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth from the NFT.storage team. Today, we make it easy and free to store off-chain NFT data decentrally through IPFS and Filecoin. I'm super excited to be here today because the team is actually in a room launching as we speak an implementation that shows off how Filecoin's new virtual machine can guarantee verifiable, trustless storage with smart contracts.
Fantastic. And Christian and then Wes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christian. I work on ecosystem at Ocean Protocol. And the Ocean Protocol is a decentralized data sharing and marketplace protocol, really acting as an ownership and coordination layer for the data economy. The protocol enables individuals and businesses to kind of have Web3 native ownership over their data and model assets, and then coordinate with a broader community of data scientists and app builders, as well as service providers like for compute and storage, to build like sustainable value creation loops for the data economy.
Hello, my name is Wes Floyd. Very glad to be a member of the panel today. I'm a product manager on the Bacalhau project and also a team member on the larger team that's building an FVM and Bacalhau bridge with the WaterLily project. And our mission is to bring compute over data to the IPFS and Filecoin ecosystems. super excited for the FVM launch today and appreciate the opportunity to participate in the panel.
Thank you, everyone. So let's jump right into it. 3 years ago, the European Commission estimated the value of personal data to be 1 trillion euros, or 8% of the EU's GDP. Let's talk about who has rights to all this data, who profits from it, and how Web3 generally and FVM in particular are changing that. Maybe Anne and Christian, you can start us off on this topic.
Yeah, for sure. So when Galaxy started, right now we're doing these, really fun learn to earn, participate to earn quests. But basically it all started because we wanted to be, a data credential infrastructure, right? Because we wanted to give back the power to the user. So this really started as, in Web 2, if you're posting on Facebook or Twitter, that data and those things that you're doing, you don't own them, right? And those big corporations are using your data to profit off of you. So Galaxy's whole goal is really to give back that power to the user, and that's why we're building this data credential infrastructure. So eventually users will be able to say, hey, I'm going to use and allow other protocols to have access to this data, but not to this, and this kind of digital identity, but not this one. So yeah, that's why we're really excited to partner up on this, because we're a strong believer of, ground up and giving back the power to the user. So I don't know if the other person wanted to add on to that. Chris, yeah.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. And believe, historically, one of the big problems for kind of individuals not being able to have ownership over their data is there hasn't really been a good way to create any value from it. The value of an individual's singular data is you can only do so much with it. And only really big tech has had both a concentration of data scientist expertise and also large amounts of data. So now kind of with Web3 protocols, though, we have the ability for individuals to kind of pull their data together, building data DAOs to kind of have large data sets, then working with a decentralized community of data scientists to create additional value on top of that data, generating insights, building powerful models. And so now you're going to have a broad community of people taking part in this ownership, from the data generators providing that data, downstream all the way to the model builders and app builders, all building even additional value creation downstream. And so all of them kind of working together and owning a small piece of that value creation loop.
And Wes, WaterLily is a project that combines AI and ethics. Can you first tell us about the LilyPad bridge that makes this possible, what it does, how it connects FVM and computing capabilities, and also why LilyPad matters with the recent explosion of generative AI?
Yes, absolutely. LilyPad is a bridge that enables smart contracts on FVM to invoke off-chain compute. It's really a bit of the best of both worlds. You get the trust of on-chain execution, you get the verifiability of off-chain execution. And WaterLily is one of the first critical use cases. A number of folks on the broader team have been building this, Simon, Ali, and other folks. But what's special about it is it's enabling underrepresented artists to monetize not only their works, but in this case, their style. So a person could say, I want to generate an image of a unicorn flying through space. The AI will automatically generate a lifelike image. And then it will take a different artist and apply their style. So it will create that image invoking their style, and it will help pay them for the style and the AI that was generated from it. More broadly, ChatGPT and these large language models have inspired a number of people with the power of AI. It's forcing them to rethink their business models and what it means to interact with an AI in terms of lifelike interactions. So the LilyPad team, the WaterLily, Backyao folks, were really at the center of this. It's a broader decentralized AI movement that's happening. There's a number of other really important projects in the space. But I think the earlier conversation that Jonathan was having was around democratizing the value and wealth creation that's going to come from these large AI solutions. And the question is, should it flow to a few large firms? Should it be more of a democratic community that's able to participate and benefit? And WaterLily is just an excellent first example. We're going to be building out LilyPad as well. So we're hopeful to have other community members help us expand the way we can impact the broader Web3 community.
Fantastic. And I think we've all been talking about the term data DAO for a long time, or its hipster grandmother name, data endowment. FVM lets us not just preserve public data, but also fund that preservation openly and autonomously. Elizabeth, why is it important for NFTs to be public goods? And why does it matter that they're managed and preserved in a fully decentralized and trustless way?
Yeah, so if we think about NFTs, NFTs bring true digital ownership. the whole asset can belong to someone. But if we think about that for a second, is it really your NFT if the content that's so core to the NFT can just disappear? So if we break that down for just a quick second, the media that visually represents the NFT and its metadata is the off-chain NFT data. And there's a common misconception that it's immutable and that it's stored on the blockchain, just like the rest of the NFT. But it's not. It's too expensive until today to so the community, the community, accept that it's hosted off-chain. The status quo is that it's stored somewhere that requires the NFT owner to trust that the creator will keep the image stored and will continue to pay that storage bill for the lifetime of the NFT. But when the creator stops paying the storage bill, we know what happens. The NFT probably goes blank and the description about the NFT disappears as well. This is why the FVM and auto-renewing perpetual storage are so important. And in this world where the whole of the NFT are public goods. The second part of your question, Mosh, why does it matter that they're managed and preserved in a decentralized way? I think NFTs fall short of their potential as a decentralized primitive today if the off-chain data isn't stored and managed decentrally. And this is where the data Dows and perpetual storage, really come in.
Thanks. And alongside the FVM launch, we're also announcing huge leaps for Filecoin's cross-chain compatibility on both messaging and token exchanges, with support from Sushi, Axelar, Sealar, and a lot more. And Eric, I think that you'd be a great person to talk a little bit about this topic, because with LivePeer, you've connected the dots across a lot of maybe seemingly disparate communities, social video startups, super technical video transcoding, peer-to-peer networks. Tell us about LivePeer's experience bringing together all these different communities, both from a community management as well as a technical perspective. Tell us about LivePeer's FVM integration and what you're excited about.
Yeah. Thanks for that question. Like the experience of kind of building these different communities. It's interesting that you mentioned they're kind of separate. While it's true, I also think about it from an ecosystem perspective, right? Like very similar to the Filecoin Protocol Labs ecosystem. There are so many different projects that are all working on different things, but they're all tied together by this the similar mission and vision of creating this decentralized data economy, right? So in that same vein, LivePeer has a very maybe like video-centric perspective in that, where we want to create a decentralized video economy, right? Where video is 80% of the bandwidth on the internet. Like that's all we do all day, like on the internet is watch video or like use video to do stuff. And so both from an infrastructure perspective and from an application and user perspective, in order for us to have this decentralized future where things are equitable and fair and not monopolized by kind of large corporations, we need to decentralize each of these areas through different techniques and different strategies, right? And there's a path to get there. So that's how I think about how we bring all these communities together, is really through kind of a mission and vision centric approach. And you mentioned kind of cross-chain compatibility. That's a really important piece of this, right? Because our the blockchain industry and ecosystem itself kind of organized around these different communities, whether it's the Ethereum community or the Solana community or the the Aptos community, whatever it is, right? Like because token holders are like kind of self-congregate within those communities. So for I think for something like FVM, which is so generic, right, providing kind of a data economy for any Web3 community, is important that you guys are building these bridges so that the value flow can happen between these like blockchain blockchain layers, right? And just to connect that to we're talking about real world usage today, right? Elizabeth, you talked about the importance of NFTs being decentralized and being hosted in public infrastructure. There's a project called Stoner Cats. It's an NFT project that that we've been working on with Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher, like power couple, and they're building this really interesting like animated series, right? So it's just kind of like Netflix style show, but they want it to be a perpetually token gated video content where only NFT holders can get access to that content, but they want it to also be around forever so that anyone 100 years from now that hosts the NFT can still access that content, and at the same time the content can be a platform itself that can be built on top on by any developer that comes along in the future, right? So all of these things become like this vision only becomes available when you have on-chain proof of the accessibility of that data, of that video data, right? And that's why I think it's really exciting that Filecoin is working on. Filecoin is working on this, and I think tying that to what we're talking about here, which I think it's like we're all aiming for mass adoption of Web3 usage, right? NFT is a great kind of introduction of Web3 technology to users, but we're not stopping here, right? Like we want Web3 tech to be used by everyday user in all of their daily applications. So I think there's some glimpse in this Web3 FVM launch that I'm really excited about as it relates to open and permissionless data portability, right? Where users can actually take their data from application to application. We're already seeing that in the signing with Ethereum product or lens profiles. You can start to take your data around, and so I think Filecoin and FVM kind of brings that into the data layer, so you can not only have your on-chain data, but you can start to have like large sets of data that you can bring from application to application. That I think is really cool.
Not only can you bring it from app to app, you can start putting processes around it like compute and language learning. So it's really exciting to see all of this cross-chain compatibility be supported, for a Polygon contract to be able to call Filecoin storage or invoke some back-allow computing processes. I think there's just so much out there ready to be built and explored and improved. So finally, let's talk about some closing thoughts. So Web3, as we've seen over the past few years and especially months, moves at warp speed. So what's keeping that fuel burning for you and for your team? What do you think the biggest opportunity is that FVM opens up in your work over the next few months or years?
Yeah, Michelle, I'm happy to just share some perspective from the Backyao and WaterLily side. We have the opportunity to see a number of different communities that are growing in the Web3 space: decentralized science, decentralized social media. And all of these have the mission to rebuild the centralized systems that are ways that are better for humanity, better for society. But they all require better infrastructure to do it. They require the best of Web2 infrastructure, but they want all the crypto economic benefits of Web3. And I think FVM is really leading the space in terms of providing decentralized storage, decentralized compute, decentralized services that those projects need. So it's really fun to be a part of a team that's actually building in this space and hoping to hopefully kind of incubate these nascent spaces of Web3.
Yeah, I'll chime in. One thing that's really immediate that I'm pretty excited about is just the kind of the ease of use and the developer productivity that we'll see improving for people who are actually using Filecoin, right? And I think that capability has been pretty underappreciated, and I'm excited to see FVM to really bring that to like a new ecosystem of developers to like to make it real, right? Like there's right now about 40 to 50 terabytes of live streams that go through the LivePeer network on a weekly basis. A lot of that data is not being archived right now, simply just because like people don't want to pay the bill to like store in S3. It's too expensive, right? You can't be like 40 terabytes every week. That adds up pretty quickly. But Filecoin has a very different economics, right? There's 13 exabytes of storage space right there that people can use to like really archive all of their data. So that starts to become a possibility.
For me,
and for us, sorry about that. You can go.
Okay. For me, NFT.storage in particular, our mission is to preserve all NFT data as a public good. So you can imagine FVM bringing the opportunity for us to spin out into a data DAO this year, which is a part of our plans, and to take such a massive step forward, as Molly mentioned earlier, around perpetual storage is just absolutely massive. It's exciting for me and for the team.
Yeah, for Ocean, I think one of the cool parts for building and why it's fun to build in Web3 is you really can build new business models that aren't constrained by like the old financial system. And you can allow kind of individuals to kind of build value flows that wouldn't have otherwise existed. And especially for the current world, like we're kind of trending towards a centralized place, like a few AI companies, like having all the data, having all the compute, and everyone having to be kind of involved with there. But with Web3, you can actually have a global coordination system where people are contributing their data. They have a say of where that data is going towards, and they can build new business models on top so that there can be a decentralized, open source like alternatives to mass corporation-owned ones. And so with Ocean, like kind of being able to build business models that specifically facilitate these types of things to occur that you can't ordinarily do. That's why it's fun to continue to build in Web3.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say for us, we're building these first kind of loyalty programs on chain, which we're thinking very much in the now, they're, or even fandom tokens, kind of stuff like that. But, we got to think about it in 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, the things that we're building now we want them to stay and be live in 30 years and be able to show those tokens of, when I mean tokens, I'm talking about NFTs and stuff like that. So I think that's why it's super interesting what you guys are working on right now. And we're happy to be a part of it.
Well, Anne, Eric, Christian, Elizabeth, Wes, thank you all so much for joining us, for building with FVM. Really can't wait to see what is coming out of your teams and the whole ecosystem in the weeks and months and years to come. I wanted to say thank you also to the entire community who've been building on this for, like Colin said, for years and months. And with that, I'll hand it back over to HQ.
Great. All right. So to quickly recap a couple of things that we've heard today, Filecoin is building open services around data. With the FVM, Filecoin is positioned uniquely as the only L1 with real-world services controllable by smart contracts. And thirdly, there's just like so much to build and explore. Lots of hackathons coming up, accelerators, grants available. We're just really grateful for the incredible amount of excitement and engagement from the community up until this day. All right, so to close off for today, Juan Dene, founder and CEO of Protocol Labs, will join us to share some of his thoughts on the FVM as we look towards the future. Juan, please.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to be sharing my screen. I think folks can see that. Yep. Great. Super excited to be here today. This is a huge monumental day for the entire Filecoin network, and it has added up to a ton of the work from the entire ecosystem. Just a huge congratulations to the entire network and the hundreds of teams and thousands of developers that have contributed to the long road to get here, especially all of the participants of the FVM working groups and so on. So it's been a huge moment for everybody. This is as we saw earlier, this is a huge step in a very long roadmap. There's been close to 1.5 to 2 years of work from a lot of different groups building towards this, and all of that, of course, builds on tons of amazing work from other groups before. So we wouldn't be here with this level of success if it wasn't for tons of developers of other open source projects and ecosystems that we were able to incorporate into our tech. So huge congratulations to all of the people involved in making this a reality. So what I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about is just, you've heard a lot today already about what FVM unlocks and many different kinds of applications and tools and systems. I wanted to turn the focus a bit towards the kind of next stages in terms of taking some of these things into reality. So how do you go from a bunch of these ideas that you've heard about today and turn those into proof of concept type things to then turn them into actual applications and potentially startup businesses or startup networks and so on. And I'll have also a special emphasis on the computation component. So first, consider this a huge invitation to come join the large community of builders across the network working on FVM and building with FVM. There's even though it's the first day already, there's a ton of applications already with significant integrations and reliance on FVM, and many more coming. So there's a ton of hackathon projects as well. Think about, make sure you check out the Spacewarp website on an ongoing basis. There's going to be a bunch of things along here. So there's already been several grants, but there will be a continuing set of prizes, plus more hackathons will be announced here and so on. A huge plug for the request of startups linked from the Spacewarp website. There's a ton of ideas there for many things that the community has regarded as needed and necessary in the community. So you might find some extremely good ideas that you might get really excited about. So check this out. I also wanted to highlight this talk that I gave a while back in ETH India on kind of how to sort of start up in 2023. There's this kind of a longer talk, but I'll just kind of give the TLDR here, which is, you have to think about kind of all the different stages that you might be in over time. So of course, first, most of you out there are already in a stage which is you're constantly learning a lot about the world and learning about potential different kinds of things that you might want to build. The first major step that you need to take is to start experimenting with ideas. As you have heard of many potential ideas today, think of experimenting with those and building early hacks. So think of whether it's kind of a paper prototype or a Figma prototype, or you actually go and build a thing. Think of that experimentation as really key to start taking your first step and your first movement towards building with FVM. Then from there, once you find an idea that might that maybe has legs, think of jumping into early validation. So hackathons are extremely useful because they help you experiment with ideas, and they also combine some of that early validation moment to give you a lot of feedback from many different groups thinking about your tech. In these moments, people tend to support a lot of their work either by doing this as kind of a part-time thing while they work elsewhere, or through scholarships, prizes, grants, and so on. So be on the lookout for that kind of thing. Then after that, once you've gotten some kind of product that potentially has legs and you validated it and so on, you're now ready to go and start the startup. So this is where looking at many of the accelerator programs out there can be extremely useful. So this is the whole Filecoin network has worked with a lot of different communities to help bring accelerator programs to support a lot of developers building on Filecoin and FVM. So stay tuned for that. And then of course from that you get into kind of getting traction, growing your products, and you're off to the races. And those moments of kind of increasing traction, improving the product, and finding product market fit is kind of what the seed stages and so on for startups are. So now the thing I wanted to leave you with is, in addition to kind of thinking about how to take your ideas and translating them into applications and startups and so on, is to think about how the major next moments in step 3, the kind of like bringing computation to the data. So as Colin mentioned already, in this kind of broader Filecoin master plan, step 1 is to build the world's largest decentralized storage network. We've achieved that, which is thanks to a ton of the work from so many participants across the world. Step 2 is to onboard and safeguard humanity's data. We've had a tremendous amount of improvement here, and we're onboarding now close to 4 petabytes a day, which is a huge amount of data. We're pushing over 600 petabytes across the network and much more. But really, what FVM enables and unlocks is the computational component. So think of FVM is giving you the core primitives that you need to be able to do the basic computations, both in kind of a blockchain science of smart contracts and so on, but also in terms of being able to schedule other kinds of computation. So think of large-scale compute over data systems, as you heard about earlier today. So think of lots of different kinds of applications that can be built with data pipelines and machine learning models and kind of backends for various services and systems. And so this is what a major area where I expect a lot of FVM and Filecoin applications are going to head. So think of being able to use things like Bacalhau and other projects to run ML workflows in these kinds of clouds. One of the most exciting things that I've seen built with FVM so far is the blending of ML models. So the example we already heard about the examples for being able to do kind of stable diffusion jobs and so on. Think of this extending to full transformer models and so on. So being able to run all of those kinds of systems directly through the computing cloud that Filecoin gives you, both in terms of the large scale data storage and data use that you might need to do, gathering massive training data sets and being able to then schedule all of the computation to make that happen, plus all of the actual prompts and invocations that you might need to do on top. So I expect that we'll see a lot of different computation L2s building on top of Filecoin now that we have these primitives. So think of different kinds of use cases and different kinds of models for computation, and those yielding different kinds of L2s. So consider this moment like today as the opening and beginning of empowering a bunch of these different computational L2s to start on the Filecoin network. And so if we can do this really well, then we can scale the blockchain networks in general to now be able to give a proper computing foundation at the scale required by the kind of mass market style applications that we use and every day, right? So if you think about most of the applications that you use today, very few of them end up using blockchains today because blockchains are not yet at the scale required to do this. Filecoin previously has already gotten into the levels of scale required in terms of the storage of data and so on. With FVM, we're now beginning the pathway towards computation, first by enabling the just smart contracts, but then from there to scheduling jobs, which can give us through which we can build backends for applications of this scale. And so this is where we're headed. Again, huge congratulations to everybody involved in building the FVM and Filecoin in general. Thank you so much, and see you around.
Thank you so much, Juan. All right, so we're actually at the end of our live stream for today. Just wanted to say a sincere thank you to all of you for celebrating the FVM mainnet launch with us today. We actually have another celebration that's going on with the FVM DevRel team that's going to take place on Twitch. So if you give me a second, I will pull up the details for that. And, feel free to join them on Twitch in a sec. All right, yeah, here's a link for the Twitch TV room. The DevRel team, Matt Hamilton, Sarah, and so forth. Everyone's going to be there, so you can feel free to hop over there after the live stream. And thank you so much, everyone, once again. Feel free to follow Filecoin on the website, on the Twitter, on the blog, and so forth to keep abreast with further updates. Thank you.